Hello everyone. It's good to be back. Okay, let's see. So the first thing that I looked at for this week's prompt was just the questions that we were going to be choosing from. So I looked at the first question. That's the prompt I'll be addressing. And for this section of the video, it's covering what I've learned in the chapter 5 of the textbook. So the first thing that the question asks, which is the first prompt listed under the discussion page, what is the relationship between words and systems as argued by the text? Well, when looking at page 160 of the textbook, I think it goes to 161 as well, we see that it talks about all sorts of things regarding language and systems. First off, when we go into the text, I was a bit confused at first about what this all meant. However, I think I have a much better understanding now that I've finished reading everything. I've gone through it a few times. In the textbook, it states that the language system used by a culture is inescapably tied to the perceptual system, but it does not create a static system that locks its members into a view of the world that cannot be changed. I thought that was a powerful way of saying that. And to me, this means that cultures have their own way of communication and systems, but it does not and should not create a static system or a pressure-sensitive system where those in the culture look around the world in a way where it'll never change. I think words and symbols relate to meaning because everything we say in every situation where we communicate with one another has a meaning. So, words are spoken and it's its own way of communication, whereas symbols are like writing and it's everything that you can read and understand on your own. Sometimes we will have words that have its own meaning on paper, and it can be seen differently when it's spoken. I think that was actually one of the other prompts, but a lot of times you'll find yourself saying something and realize it has a different meaning than if you were to just write it down. I think part of it too has to do with the structural word, but also how you perceive it and then how it sounds with emotion. I think that in one way the relationship between words and systems have had in my life would be the ability to text a friend when I want them to know I'm sharing something with them and I'm trying to convey something to them, but it doesn't give off the same meaning or emotion behind it because emotion can't be portrayed in a text the same way that you would portray it if you spoke it to them. So that's basically what I have for the first prompt. Sorry, I'm using my phone as a flashlight because it's very dark in my room. Okay, so for the second question, it asks, discuss the most important ideas the text presents as barriers to communication. This one was a bit hard for me, also, not in the same sense as, I didn't understand what the text was saying. I was just confused about how I portray that in my own life, because it's a lot easier to understand things when you're able to use them in your past situations, and you're just able to convey them in your own way. So the best thing that I was able to find from the text for this question is going to be on page 146, under the section of manner. In the text, it states that one of the most obvious barriers to intercultural communication exists when those interacting do not share the same language. Now, when I saw that, it all made sense to me. I was really able to put that into perspective because for me, this would mean that the biggest barrier out there regarding communication would be the lack of understanding another person and what they're saying due to the inability to speak the same language as them. So the solution for this, of course, depends on the specific circumstance. So, for example, I think 6 years ago, I visited France for 2 months, and I realized that I did have some language barrier because I wasn't fluent in French. However, I did understand what the waiters and some of the other people who were giving us tours were trying to say to me, mainly because I spent embarrassingly 4 years learning French and still did not pick up as much as I should have. And then also after leaving France, we were there for 2 months, then we went to Italy for 2 months. I had absolutely no idea what people were trying to say to me. Like, zero idea. I understood the word bella, which means beautiful, and that's pretty much it. So, I didn't speak any Italian. So just like the book says, a solution for this is kind of for this kind of situation would be like to simply get an interpreter. That can be tricky. It depends on the situation. Like, I know that I've been watching some shows and stuff. I don't know if anyone else have seen, like, Inventing Anna on Netflix, but one thing I noticed from that show was that when the reporter went to Germany, she needed an interpreter. She couldn't understand what anyone was trying to say. So that is one solution, but the second solution would be to just make it a priority of yours to learn the language of someone that you are, like, trying to talk to. So, for example, for me, going back to Italy, I did understand some of the French in France, but I didn't understand any of the Italian, so I could have done better and put more of an effort in to learn Italian. My grandparents did. I did not, because I was busy in school, in high school. So yeah, you have an interpreter, and then you have, learning someone else's language. Another way that I can attest to having issues with communication barriers would be the fact that I don't speak any Spanish. None. And my dad and my stepdad's family all speak Spanish. This causes an issue for understanding because I don't speak Spanish, but I'm lucky enough to have a Hispanic family who also speaks English, so it just works out great, and everyone's able to understand each other. And then my brother also speaks fluent Spanish, fluent Chinese, and then, or I guess Mandarin and English, so he is my personalized interpreter. Okay, so let's see, moving on to chapter 6, there were 2 more questions that I'd like to address. So first off, the prompt that covers nonverbal communication. I really like chapter 6. It was, like, super easy to understand for me. Nonverbal communication to me means that what way can we convey what we're trying to say or feel without needing to deliberately speak it to somebody. So there are all sorts of things that we learned in this chapter about nonverbal communication. This includes what you do with your body when someone is talking to you or when you're talking to someone else. This includes what your eyes are doing, whether or not you're paying attention to someone or zoning out. This could also include whether or not you're biting your nails when you're talking to your parents, if they're asking you something stressful or if you did something wrong, which of course stems from anxiety. It's all the little actions that surround your spoken words to me. So I think nonverbal communication adds to communication and its process when you're trying to see how someone's going to react to what you're saying. So the best example I can think of is when I was on the swim team back in high school. I had a coach who, for the most part, was very strict. She definitely had favorites, and, like, she was a hard person to talk to. I got along with her fine, but I had my moments. I remember if I had to miss practice or leave early to meet with a teacher or study group, I would literally be so scared to approach her. I would hide behind the glass entrance to our pool and try and read her body language and see if her face looked mad. I don't know if that makes sense, but that way it gave me the ability to prepare for, like, her being mad, upset, or understanding, basically anything. So everyone knew on the swim team that she wasn't fun to be around if she was annoyed, so I think that was just the universal non-spoken language for us. But yeah, so, let's see. There are several things that are considered that need to be considered when you're talking about nonverbal communication. There's our physical environment, clothes, food, smell, eyes, movement, like your eye movement, and the time. So that actually connects us to the last question that I'll be addressing. Let's see. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to cover for chapter 6 would be what are ways that you can best improve your nonverbal communication. This has been a big part of my life. This class was very intimidating to me at first because everyone knows about how communication classes involve speeches. I'm not good at speeches at all, and I'm trying my very best right now. But I have no experience with taking any communication classes before this, so it kind of adds to my anxiety. It is great practice though, so I'm going into it with an open mindset and really wanting to improve. So yeah, but one way that you can improve how you portray yourself while you're speaking to someone, well, there's a number of them. Some people say fake it till you make it, and that would be good enough because soon enough it turns into habit. I think this is true with sports and technique. I do think it's a lot harder when you're talking to people though, because you have anxiety that stems from things like not being experienced in it, like me. I'm fairly shy, so being confident in front of my class or professor is hard, even if it's over video. Some ways I learned how to improve my nonverbal communication is to have like good posture, keep my arms down at my side, or just talk with my hands. I do that all the time. I'm Italian, I think it's in my nature, but, not have your arms crossed because that closes you off and makes you unapproachable. Another would be to make sure you have good eye contact with someone. You're not like picking your fingernails and looking around the room. So maybe just don't fidget with your hands. Another would to be like you need to dress appropriately for certain occasions, or like if you have an interview, you don't want to wear like shorts and a crop top. That's what I'm trying to say. Like you need to go into it dressed appropriately. It gives you better confidence, and then also having good hygiene. And another big one is listening to people and actually paying attention. Because if your like eyes are wandering around, you can be mistaken for just not caring about what someone has to say or just being easily distracted. Both don't really look good to someone who's trying to communicate to you. So yeah, but anyways, I hope everyone has a good night. I enjoyed this week's discussion, and I'm very excited to see what else people have to say. So thank you.